Well, welcome everybody. Fantastic to have you on board. And thank you for joining. For those that don't know me, my name is Will Lloyd. I am the Executive Chairman of Global Sports. Global Sports is the leading jobs platform dedicated to connecting top talent with career opportunities in the global sports industry. We provide a trusted marketplace for professionals and organizations, offering innovative solutions for recruitment, career development, and industry insights. So that's what we've built. We are delighted and very fortunate to be supported by EMLYON Business School, and more specifically their MSc in Sports, Entertainment and Lifestyle. This is an international course in English, and I believe they have up to sort of 20 nationalities in their course over the period. So very much an international course that they deliver. EMLYON is one of the leading European business schools, as defined by the FE rankings. They have a campus in not only in Lyon, but in Paris and Shanghai. So thank you to them for their support in making this happen. And also thank you to the Global Sports Early Careers team, whose focus is supporting the 16 to 24-year-old market and encouraging them to learn more about the sports industry through the various channels that we provide them. So thank you to everybody that has allowed this to happen. And finally, a big thank you to our speakers. They're going to introduce themselves shortly, but at the moment, a very quick introduction to Rhys Beer, an expert consultant in sports, media and entertainment. I'll let Rhys explain a little bit more about his background in due course, but a highly experienced executive. And Antoine, who is the program director delivering the Master's course in Sports and Entertainment at EMLYON. So welcome to you both. Thank you very much for your time, and look forward to discussing this very exciting topic. So let's just set the scene. I'm going to talk for a little bit longer, but not for much longer. Let's just set the scene. This is, what are we going to talk about? And more importantly, what are we going to learn? For decades, sports has been defined by competition. You've got athletes battling for victory, you've got teams striving for championships, and fans rallying behind their favourites. But today, sport is no longer just about winning and losing. It has become a global entertainment powerhouse. It shapes culture, it helps shape fashion, music, and even social movements. So leagues and teams are adapting, athletes are building personal brands, and fans are engaging in new ways, blurring the lines between competition, content, and culture. We've got Netflix Drive to Survive, which we'll talk about in a bit, to TikTok's highlights. And the way we experience sport is changing faster than ever. The question is no longer who won, but how does it feel to be part of the experience? Today, we're going to explore this shift, and we're going to focus on three key areas. The evolution of sports consumption. So basically how sport is becoming more of an entertainment product. We're going to talk about convergence of sports, entertainment and lifestyle. So the impact on the industry and the new career opportunities that are emerging. And then we're going to loop that right back to career skills and opportunities. So real world examples showing how content is changing career paths and the required skills, and ultimately how the master's course can help develop those skills for these types of roles. There was recently, and in the last couple of weeks, the World Economic Forum released their world skills or world talent report, which off the top of my head, and I don't have the facts with me, but suggested that there will be 80 million jobs displaced in the next, and I think it was 5 years, but I don't trust me on the facts. But 80 million jobs displaced in the next 5 years, but 160 million created. So it just gives you an idea of how quickly the market is changing, both from a consumption perspective, as we're going to discuss today, but also from a skills perspective across all industries, not just sport. So the last point before we get going is a slightly new format today, is that we're going to launch some polls. I think there are 3 polls to the 3 different key focus areas, and I'd like everybody to participate in those polls, because it's going to give us a real life understanding of people's position, perception of the topic. So please participate in the live polls. You'll see them coming up shortly. And if you've got any questions, please put those in the chat, and I will endeavour to bring those to life as soon as I can. If it's difficult, because we do have a lot to cover, I'll try and do that at the end. But please, if you do have any questions, please make sure they go in the chat through Zoom. So let's get started. Enough about my introduction. The topic of the evolution of sports consumption, how sport is becoming more of an entertainment product. On the screen, you'll see a couple of things: new types of content or media. You've got Drive to Survive, Welcome to Wrexham, All or Nothing, very much media-driven content or new type of content. And then also on that screen, you've got new sport formats designed for entertainment and engagement of new fans. So you've got Baller League, you've got Kings League there, you've got TGL Golf. You don't have IPL cricket, but it's another example. You've got the 100 exact. So those are the types of new sport formats that are being created to engage new fans, and you've got the media content as well. So I'm going to start by, I think we're going to do the poll to start with. So on the screen shortly, you'll see a poll, and you are able to fill in the poll. Yeah, that's come up. So I'd like you to tick one of the 2, or each question requires one choice. So if you could all fill those in, we'll come back to that in a couple of minutes and share the results, and we can talk about it. But I think in the meantime, what I'd like to do is introduce Rhys and Antoine again. I'd like them just to talk a little bit about their background and their relevance to this topic, and then I'd like them just to share their initial thoughts on the overarching transformation of sports into entertainment. And I think, Rhys, if you could start by sharing your initial thoughts on this, that would be fantastic.
Sure, Will. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay, Sam?
Yeah, all good.
So thank you to Antoine and Will for having me today. So my name is Rhys Beer. I am a executive in the sports media and tech industry. I have been working in the area of content strategy, content production, media rights, and marketing in the sports industry for over 20 years. Started my career at the Football Association in England, and have gone on to hold leadership positions at companies including Meta, NBC Universal, and DAZN. I've really worked through the a lot of significant change in the industry, and I think that's a good way to kick off the conversation and the topics that Will was talking about. To sort of help frame the discussion, I'm going to show my age a little bit and give you guys some context. I know many of you will be stage in your life and you're sort of looking at education options. So over the course of your lifetime, in terms of over the last 20 years, we've witnessed a completely transformative shift in the way content is discovered, distributed, and consumed. So at the start of the century, and I know, this is important for for context. Audio-visual content, video content, for example, there was a completely controlled means of distribution. So we as consumers could only access this content through a small and finite number of means. They were generally like linear television channels, multi-channel systems through satellite and cable might have delivered hundreds of channels, but for many households in the late 90s and early 2000s, you would be limited to less than 10 live television channels at one point. There may have been a small number of radio stations delivering audio content in most markets. And then there was means to consume content on demand through fixed media such as DVD and the emerging technology of video on demand. So I would call that it's important to think about this as an environment where distribution was controlled. There were only so many outlets to consume content. And in this environment, basically it was possible for if we take the sports industry, for a particular sports event, so take Wimbledon or the French Open in tennis, to completely dominate a media landscape over the 2 weeks that an event was held, because there was only a certain number of options in terms of television, radio, and written press on which to consume current events. And these events were the dominant events within our sort of local culture at the time. We live in a completely different world today, obviously, where we live in a world of effectively infinite distribution channels. That restriction on distribution has been completely smashed, really. So everybody is a broadcaster or a creator today. We have a kind of almost unlimited amount of choice in terms of what to consume and how to consume it. Whereas previously the model was a broadcaster broadcasting one to many in terms of one directional. Our audiences are now much more, have expectations around interactivity, a higher degree of engagement, and sort of community around consumption. Our audiences have expectations around personalization in terms of platforms curating content to their personal interests. All of this content, for context, as Will has alluded to, has driven significant changes for the sports industry. And we've already talked about here two very interesting ways, right? So the first way I would talk about is the way in which sports themselves have needed to change to service this different market, this different nature of consumption. We are seeing that amongst this much wider range of choice, users, there's a global competition for attention. Whereas before, a sport may be competing for attention with other sports. Today, any sport is competing for attention with video gaming, with creator content, with film, with television, with any other form of entertainment. There are changes in terms of potentially how long a sports event might be optimal, whereas before there was, we had more time. So we're seeing a shortening of sports events. We're seeing a lot more tech infusion within sports events, and we shared some of those examples earlier on the screen in terms of the latest golf product in the US called TGL, which has been launched by Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy, to things like Baller League and Kings League, new shorter format football concepts driven by high-profile creators. But we're also seeing a major shift into the production of content tailored to some of these particular platforms where audiences are. And as we said, audiences are much more fragmented across a much broader range of distribution outlets. And this calls for significant changes in the strategy of content owners, which I'm happy to and excited to share a bit more with you all about today.
Thank you, Rhys. Very insightful snapshot of where the market has come from and where it's going. Antoine, from your perspective on the overarching topic, from an academic and program perspective, what's your view?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Will, for having us this morning. And Rhys, very, very nice to see you again. Thank you very much for this first word of introduction. Just very, very quickly on my side, I just wanted to set the stage, a little bit of history. Media created sports as we know it. I'm just going to take an example as I am actually located in France, so I'm going to give you a French perspective. Take the Tour de France and a bike event existing since the beginning of the 20th century, created by a media, basically, media focusing on cars and not on bikes, trying to create content to sell their magazine. So, and in essence, sports as we know it, we can split it in two parts. We have sports that we practice that have been, existing for quite a long time. The Brits and the UK has been instrumental in creation of modern sports. We should never forget this. But the sports that we were talking about today, more precisely, is something that we consume media content, but this is being produced and created by the media since the start. And since this start, what we've been able to witness is, it's always, back and forth between media organizations and sports organizations. And according to where technology is taking us, where, and Rhys has mentioned that's fragmentation of the markets, evolution of the society, evolution of the technology, evolution of the pipes, if I may, speak like this and take such an example to elaborate on how media is conveyed, is transmitting their content. So back and forth, and this is what we can witness today. Sometimes we can see that media is taking over, sports again, and we can see sports actors, trying to get the lead at some points. And so this dynamic, this exchange is what makes it, as we can see it, as from the consumer's perspective. So what we do on our side, basically, and what I do on my side myself, is we try to make sense, basically, of these changes. And evolution of the society on the one side, and evolution of the technology, and how these intersect. That's what we can if I may just introduce what we do and why we do this.
Thank you very much, Antoine. Let's go to the poll. Thank you everybody for participating in the poll. I think we've got 90% of the audience participating. I clearly need to wake up the other 10%, but we can do that over the next 40 minutes. So the first question is, how do you primarily consume sports content today? I think there was a question from the audience already just about attention spans from the audience. So what we can see from this is that 46% of the audience, so 46 out of 101, traditional TV broadcasters, including digital and OTT, is how they consume sport. 23% through digital first streamers, and 30% through social media, 2% through traditional written media. Well, I'm not quite sure how much the Athletic got bought the other day, didn't it? And I'm not quite sure what that number was, but for a quick snapshot of 2% of the global audience would suggest that they might have overpaid for that. But before we go into the second question, let's just sort of top line, Rhys, Antoine, what are your thoughts on that? Is there a surprise? Is that as you would have anticipated, Rhys?
Yeah, I think so first of all, my observations, still 50%, nearly 50% of primary consumption is through the the main rights holding broadcasters in a given market. So this is a reflection of the fact that it is still broadcasters who are the gatekeepers of the best content and the most important content. And as we see on the following question, which I know we'll come to separately, Will, but there's still the primary driver around live consumption and delayed consumption, if you see what I mean. So the broadcasters remain the gatekeepers. I am sure that the digital expansion of these services has helped them retain that relevance. In terms of, if we were to ask this question 15 years ago, all of that broadcaster consumption would have been through linear television, most of it, and now it's through much more kind of flexible digital options. And whilst 46% may be on traditional TV broadcasters, I think we have to also recognize that a lot of the rest of the 54% is brand new new entrants, if you see what I mean, that we weren't thinking about 20 years ago. So for the students on the call today, just bear in mind, the speed of change is only going to stay the same or get faster. So it's like we literally don't know kind of how we're going to be watching sport in 20 years' time, when you guys will be my age and sitting here talking to children that are probably babies that are being born today. So just be super kind of conscious of the pace of change that we're operating around.
Speed of change. Antoine, your thoughts on that first question of how do you primarily consume sports content today?
It's well, I'm very much aligned with what has been said by Rhys. How I would view it, though, if I had to, change, perspective, is also considering the audience today. It could be that because we're addressing an audience of, specialists, if I may say, diehard fans, and if I use this expression, this could explain, the reason why we see, primarily content producers such as, Dozen and the like, specialists, those who own, the media rights, as being the number one. Now, one must not forget that overall, what we see and what data shows is that people, how they consume, rather than consuming sports, classically, very often we can see that they snack the content. It's not necessarily that they're going through the entire, products that is being offered. Very often, people are going to snack and do multiple things, while consuming the product. So we need to always be cautious when we look at what's the sample and what does it refer to. Take a little distance and see, okay, well, yes, and I totally agree that the content producers are those who own the content, but then you can see that on social media, it remains quite important, as well. It's TikTok, YouTube, and so on. And these are platforms that, they don't own any rights. They're just, enablers. And they don't promise anything. It's just, that you have little pieces available. And that should also, be something that we really take into consideration. So just to sum it up, it's obvious and it makes sense. It's very logical that traditional TV broadcasters appear number one, and it has probably to do with the quality of the respondents. However, it's those who have the sticks and who have the control over the distribution of this content. But the social media, we have to look at this phenomenon also very quickly, because it's not the content per se, but it's how people are using it. So they just probably take some small bits out of this. Live matches for 50% among this specialist audience remains vivid, very often we can hear that, yes, it's the end of live content. Here again, it could be also that if you look at how, especially the young audience is watching, I'm taking the example of the Champions League, they may watch several matches at the same time. Something new that we're also observing. Something that did not exist 20 years ago was highlights and clips. We had very few. Beyond this highlights that was conveyed directly by the traditional broadcasters after the events.
Thank you, Antoine. Rhys, any thoughts on well, first of all, someone has mentioned in the chat, and it's absolutely completely right, and I wanted just to say thank you for it, from Loic, who mentioned that clearly they were only able to give one choice to the questions, so therefore the answers are slightly skewed to a one choice answer rather than a multiple choice. So thank you, Loic, for bringing that to our attention. Rhys, just from your perspective, just on the second question around primarily on the primary consumption, in the UK, we are known for our live consumption. I mean, the amount of people that spend ridiculous money on going to watch live sport, both physically or through the TV or through the media, is ridiculous. And even my kids will refuse to have dinner when there's a live match on. They won't put it on record. They have to watch it live. So what are your thoughts on that question, Rhys? What do you primarily consume?
Yeah, I mean, I'm slightly surprised by the live matches and events being so high. It is probably slightly against one of the prevailing narratives in our industry commentary, which is that younger audiences are not watching as much live and are not watching for as long, if you see what I mean, that they prefer sort of more snackable, bite-sized content. But as Antoine said, probably the audience we have on this call, considering a kind of sports-related study, are likely to be higher intent sports fans. So I think my main takeaway is kind of as expected. But for all you guys on the call, also have a think about, what these answers would look like for somebody who's not already an established fan of a sport, a team, or a property, which is also a key challenge for us working in the sports industry, is in terms of how we bring in new fans, how we attract new audiences. And that isn't always going to be, and is unlikely to be, through the live match. And so as we go down that list of options, if you see what I mean, these other content formats become super important in terms of how we can bring people into a sport or competition for the first time.
Thank you, Rhys. I think there's some sort of discussion that we could talk about with regards to sort of how OTT and social media are revolutionizing sports, and I want to kind of bring that in, but I also am conscious that we've only got an hour and we need to keep moving. So I'm gonna stop there, and we're gonna move on to sort of the second theme, which is around the convergence of sports. So maybe we can either interweave that bit into this, or we can pick it up at a later stage. But convergence of sports, entertainment, and media. We've got another poll here that we would like to share with you. It's up on the screen at the moment. But I want to have a think about the big trend that is shaping this industry and what impact that it's going to have on our future. This poll: what impact do we think the convergence of sport and entertainment lifestyle will have on our future of the industry? Single choice again. Apologies, Loic, but single choice. Please participate and see if we can get more than the 90% that we did last time. Moving that on, and I'll start again with you, Rhys, if I may. What's your, share with me your thoughts or your views on this particular subject?
Yeah, my views on this. I always find it helpful to provide sort of some historical context, and I think I'll come back to this point that the previous cycle of our industry, it was, you kind of had a degree of sports fandom was in some way sort of ring fenced in terms of consumers were spending their time on sport over here, film over there, kind of, other, you kind of had a certain amount of, there was a sort of separation of participation, consumption in terms of this is my sport, this is my film, this is my television. An interesting reference point here is the NBA, right? Like, so the NBA in the US, whilst being one of the, the 4 leading national sports, but really there's a big one in the NFL, and then NBA is the number 2 professional sports league in the US. Slightly unlike football, it's always had this high degree of cultural relevance in terms of, the music that players would listen to, the advent of the Jordan brand, which came out of an NBA player in the 1990s and has gone on to become the single largest sub brand within the Nike conglomerate. The explosion of sneaker culture, which has then gone on to be a subset of retail in its own right. A lot of this has emerged from the NBA. The NBA has and basketball has had this outsized influence on American culture due to the sort of nature of the athletes being sort of real sort of cultural beacons for so many. So we see in the case of professional basketball in the US a lot of crossover between fashion and music, right? What I'm seeing in the sports industry today is a recognition that to compete, to be relevant, you need to serve broader audience interests, right? So I'd encourage all of you to have a look online and have a little read about the Australian Open tennis, and we can add a link to this article in the comment on LinkedIn if you like. But there was a great article earlier in the week about how the Australian Open tennis are really considered one of the market leaders in diversifying the fan experience. It used to just be about buying a ticket for tennis. Now, when you go to Melbourne, you can access some of Melbourne's top restaurants via outlets that are pop-ups within the tennis arena. There's there's music activations, there's concerts, there's brand activations with Google, right? This is now a sort of cross-cultural experience, and I think we will see more and more of that. I was looking at Arsenal, the football club recently announced a tie-up with Aries, which is to launch a kind of like streetwear brand for the same time, sort of diversification away from just sportswear into streetwear. So a lot more convergence in terms of around lifestyle, culture, food, music. And I know this is a topic close to Antoine's heart and has been talking about this on the course for quite some time, which is awesome.
Thank you, Rhys. Antoine, linking that back to the programme and the skills required for the future, what just sort of share some views on that, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, I'm just going to answer this questions. I will elaborate on Rhys' perspective.
Yeah.
I think these examples of these sports properties, looking into market growth and generate new revenues. What we can observe is that sports used to be available on live channels for free, delivered by public public broadcasters. Since these properties have recorded some costs because they want to enhance the product. Same occurs with the distribution channels. These properties are using private distribution channels that in the end essentially addresses diehard fans. If you're going to pay a subscription to Sky Sports, if you're going to pay a subscription to DAZN or to beIN Sports, if you're just if you're a diehard fan, you're going to subscribe. there's no questions. But what if you're just, someone who may have an interest at some point, but you don't feel like you're going to pay for this, on a monthly basis. Well, what's the consequence of this is you all of a sudden create a limit in the extension of your audience. And so consequence is, you need to grow or raise the price to cope with, the raising cost. So that's one limitation that we are observing. The second phenomenon, and I think we're going to elaborate on this as well, in the crossroad of sports and entertainment, is the phenomenon of with a drive to survive. I just want to remind this, and we'll come back to this example, I know, a little later, but you all know that, Formula One, 10 years ago, everyone, and we all, were looking at it as something that was going to disappear. It was a complete nonsense. And we looked at it as motorsports, and due to, sustainable issues and all these environmental issues, especially among the young audience, we would see, and we were seeing, F1 as something really declining. It was, by the way, and back then, handled by sports people, motorsports specialists. 7 years ago, 8 years ago, actually, yet it is, I think it was in 2017. So I may be wrong with the dates. Please excuse me for this. The commercial rights were, taken over by a media company. And what they did is, they turned this motorsports events handled and managed by motorsports people. They turned it into an entertainment product. It was no longer about, motorsports per se. Motorsports ended up becoming secondary. It was, a entertainment product, serialized. There was an, editorialization and of the content, sequelization of the content, and editing of the content. Motorsports, it was used, but it was all about, the life of these extraordinary people, the pilots. So we moved away from, the cars and the circuits to, the extraordinary lives, and this content was serialized and edited. We moved away from sports to entertainment and sports. That's the crossroad, and that's what we observe today, this convergence of these two silos or sectors, if I may speak like this. And what Rhys was saying about NBA, it's exactly this. NBA was really at the forefront of turning sports content into an entertainment product, and in essence, it's the NBA, but I would say that American sports were really at the forefront of, understanding that to grow the sports property and to grow the interest, they would have to, to raise the interest, they would have to turn the sports product into an entertainment product. And I'm going to conclude, with one example that everyone is aware of. When it comes to the Super Bowl, we'll all remember, the concerts, halftime. Who remembers, the team who won? No one. And the beauty of this is that the NHL, has understood that for this particular event, it had to be, live for free to access a much broader audience. Because what's central to the Super Bowl is not the match. What's central is all the commercials that are going to be edited for the occasion. And that's what also everyone remembers at the end. So sports, is becoming here, and it's not becoming, it's a real vehicle. So it's not just sports on one side and entertainment. It's really like the convergence of both that, creates the new perspective.
Fusion of both. Thank you, Antoine. Very interesting. And could we just thank you, Sam? The poll. So can't quite work out how many people have participated in that, but good healthy numbers. And it looks like the answer to the question is 40% of it is increased collaboration between sports brands and influencers, which, Antoine, is clearly what you were just talking about in terms of that fusion between the two. Keeping this sort of quite short, if we may, Rhys, anything stand out there that you think is surprising?
No, I'd say this is a really interesting and encouraging response, right? The point here, guys, is that, you know, there isn't one of these that is most important. It's just to sort of get a feel for the room, Will, and to see that, like, you know, for each one of them, you know, the group consider most important. Nobody's right or wrong here. And in fact, as we were sort of planning this session, you know, we know that all of these areas are going to be important. All of these areas are going to, you know, people are going to get right. People are going to build businesses around. And these and others will be things that many of you guys in the room will probably challenges you'll be tackling in your career. So not surprised and, you know, encouraged by the interest and the kind of sort of just trying to look around the corner, thinking that all of them are going to be factors, because they are.
Thank you, Rhys. Antoine, I think this is kind of a good segue from your perspective back into the skills required.
Yeah, I think it's I totally agree. It's there's no right or wrong here. It's just, you know, a perspective, and I think none of us have a crystal ball to you know, describe, you know, what the future is going to look like. But, you know, what we can do is we can only make sense of what's happening right now. Yes, what we can say is that, and what we observe is that there's still a great enthusiasm for live content, and but what we can also observe is that the cost of the production of this live content is really growing. So there's a clear need to expand this content to reach a broader audience, and who has access to this. And so what we can also observe right now, there's a closer link between sports properties, and here I mean not only clubs, because clubs don't necessarily have direct access to you know, media distributors, but there's a closer link between leagues and you know, IP owners, you know, product owners, with the media distribution, you know, and we can see, you know, a lot's happening as well, you know, with TikTok, or, you know, directly with platforms such as Amazon Prime. Rhys was mentioning tennis and Wimbledon, or the French Open. You know, they connect, you know, at some specific time to deliver specific content. So what it means is that yes, these convergences as well will affect the way we work, and will have an impact on, you know, what's required, you know, in terms of capabilities, competencies. And I think it's here I would like to bring two perspectives. One needs to really be well equipped with the understanding of transformation of consumption modes and consumers' expectations. And we can see this, and it translates in what companies are looking for in terms of profiles. You know, it has to do with cultural marketing, the ability to understand, you know, where the taste are going, and how to make sense from a business perspective, how to, you know, turn that into action plan. How can you make sense and of these changes, and how can you package the offering, you know, what people are eager to consume, to buy or not buy. And because everything's changing fast, it's no longer, you know, the big studies for, you know, for years. It's really about, you know, yes, this is not working, we need to change. So it's really about adaptability. And I think that's what we observe today. What are the impacts of these conversions is major need to adaptability, understanding the sense of meaning of what's at stake, and adaptability to turn this into action plan that you can, adapt almost on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Antoine. Very, very useful. Conscious of time, let's move into theme 3 now. Sam, if you could put the theme 3 questions up, that would be very helpful. As I said at the beginning, we're going to loop this back into career skills and opportunities. There's certainly some questions that have come through on the Q&A, which we'll endeavour to answer, and a lot of that is around sort of career skills and opportunities. So the poll 3 is, what skills do you think are most important for building a career in this space? We're going to move quite quickly here, so please, if people can respond almost now, immediately, that would be very helpful. I'm going to go back to Antoine. Just from your perspective, Antoine, you've got a good perspective on this from an academic and a student point of view. What's your sort of initial thoughts on this topic?
Well, if you don't mind, I'm just going to elaborate. There was just a question in the chat box asking what would be the typical entry job. Well, very challenging, and thank you again for this for raising these questions, because it gives me the opportunity to come back on what do we mean by sports, entertainment, and lifestyles. And in fact, we very often get mistaken, because for some people, sports is working in a club, working in a league. And if you speak to people, in sports products, such as, people at Salomon, at Adidas, at Nike, Puma, and the like, they believe that sports industry, it's them. And for some others, it's all about, federations, the non-for-profits, government institutions. So we have to look at it that, okay, well, there's probably one word. There's probably a need to redefine, what sports stands for. And if you're going to look for a position or a first job in, the sports manufacturing, sporting goods, if I may say so, well, very often it's going to be about product ownership, becoming in marketing product owner. But depending on the country and the company, it may also be that people or organizations are going to look into hiring people in business development. Basically, competition is becoming really fierce. Business development and data analytics and understanding what people are willing to consume are the key pillars and the key departments that hire people today. And to start with, you need to make a choice. You cannot be just seen as a thoughtful data analyst and someone who is a business developer. You have to make a choice, and it really depends on your first capabilities, your first competencies. And my tip or my advice would be, try to capitalize on one very specific field and remain open, but try to to own a set of competencies. Don't take too many, because those who are showing that they're able to do too many things at a time, if you do too many things, you do nothing. So it's an advice I would say that is still relevant today when we hear organization and people within organization talking about this.
Thank you, Antoine. Let's have a quick look at the poll. In terms of the answer of what the most important skills are, digital marketing and content creation at 39%, which is big. Cross-cultural communication collaboration at 43%. That's interesting as well. The networking relationship management at 55. I mean, I go back to Rhys's point, and Antoine seconded it. They're all important. So it's just interesting to see people's perception of how important, the priority order of that. Rhys, from your experiences, and you've kind of been in the real world, doing real things and making things happen. What can you share with us on sort of new skills or?
Well, so thanks again everybody for the engagement. I hope it's been useful. So just trying to look at some of the questions coming in. Astrid and Isma, I'm trying to summarize effectively my thoughts on getting into the industry, first jobs, skills and profiles that are going to be helpful. Right, this is a personal opinion, right? So it's just my view, so it may not be everybody's. I think first of all, right, the sports industry is now an industry. It's been professionalized. So 20 years ago, it was kind of being a fan was kind of relevant to getting a job. If you love the sport, you love the team. So we're past that now. So I wouldn't be thinking about your fandom. It's kind of irrelevant. Like, you're not going to be hired and recruited based on your passion. Now, in some jobs, in sport, being particularly passionate might help. You understand the fan base. In some jobs in sport, it might be a hindrance if you're in finance or legal and you need to make really kind of balanced decisions. You don't want to be too emotional, if you see what I mean. That's my first point. I wouldn't worry too much about your degree of fandom. I'm going to make another point here, and on reflection, as somebody that I feel very blessed to have spent 20 plus years in and around the sports and media industry. My path, I got a job working for the Football Association in London straight out of university, which it was fantastic and has served me well, right? Where it helped, I made amazing contacts and relationships, and these do remain incredibly important as a way to do business. I got to know people, I built a reputation. A lot of other people I know that are senior leaders in the sports industry today, in fact, most of them did not start their career in a sports organization, to Antoine's point, right? I'm seeing a lot of people develop their expertise and their professionalism on one track before moving sideways into the sports industry as their chosen vertical, if you see what I mean. This is a really important point. I want to say to you guys, it's a marathon, not a sprint. I would encourage you not to choose a first job after university just because it's in a sports organization or a sports related role. If you want to work in the sports industry in the long term, make decisions now that set you up for that success. And that doesn't necessarily have to be in the sports industry straight away. You could go out, just thinking about it, like, I know, Will, we're going to wrap, but FMCG brands, like, get to know them, understand how they think, become a brand specialist, a marketing specialist. Sports organizations need that. But you could come in when you're 25 or 29 or 35. There's no rush. Telcos, media companies, event operators, how to make money out of stadiums and events, social, digital marketing specialists, or technical skills, legal, consultancy, finance, right? Yes, there are entry points, which are one option, but don't overlook, if you see what I mean, building your career with an eye saying, I would love to work in sports one day. The more experienced, qualified you get, the industry is going to need you. So it's not necessarily about tomorrow. It can also be 5-10 years time. Play the long game.
I think that's absolutely right, Rhys, and I can feel and hear a lot of people nodding. It's become a functional expert and use that functional expertise at some point and transition it into the sports industry. And more and more organizations are looking for people that have that functional expertise, not that industry expertise. Not in every role or every functional area, but certainly in some of the key factors. I've also enclosed the future of jobs report in there, because you'll start to see the types of jobs that are becoming increasingly more valuable in all industries, and sport is not an exception. We've got 3 minutes left, guys. There have been some good questions. I think we've answered quite a few of them indirectly rather than directly, but I do want to sort of take this opportunity. One sort of takeaway fact or consideration from you, Rhys, and from you, Antoine, in terms of what you think is people should walk away with. What piece of information do you think, if they don't remember any of this but remember one thing regarding their careers within this space, what would it be?
I'm going to start with something that I took out of the session myself, which was, although we saw live event broadcast and dedicated sports broadcasters represent the primary choice, what we saw on those polls was up to 50% of primary consumption of content or outlets that did not exist, 20 years ago in many cases. As I said, I believe that the pace of change is only going to accelerate rather than decelerate. So as you embark on your careers, I would just really encourage you to sort of do it with a sense of flexibility and open-mindedness about that constant that is change, and that, we're not trying to solve for a static environment. Be aware of constant evolution and try not to sort of become too stuck or static in how you view the market, and that it's always going to be constantly changing. And I'm fascinated to see what those outlets and formats will in another 5, 10, 20 years time. Don't
go away, Rhys. We'll do it in 20 years time and see where we've got to. Antoine, what about from you?
Well, it's all of this is absolutely true. If I had to give a tip to the participants today, and those are willing to join these fields, and to make a step, in these fields, I really invite you to look at what the challenges is and how you analyze the challenges that these organizations that you're willing to join, what are they? And offer them, your own perspective. Instead of talking about you in the first place, talk about them and how you view their situations, and demonstrate, your capabilities in terms of your analytical capabilities. Show that you have a stand, that you have a view. It may not be the only one, but demonstrate that you have this capability to observe. You have this capability to engage as well, as, be proactive and say, okay, well, my analysis is this one, and I'd be very happy or very honored to, discuss this with you. I think that's the best way to demonstrate first your capabilities, and also to demonstrate your observation skills. And it's highly valued, today, because everyone wants to talk about themselves. Turn it the other way around. Demonstrate that their problems, are important to you, because in fact, what you're willing to do is trying to, put your competencies at the service of solving these issues and these challenges, whether they're in digital, whether it is in marketing, in product management. You make your choice, and you start with the field with which you feel the most comfortable. Don't try to pretend that you're the best digital experts if you're not. It makes no sense. But start with what is the most appealing to you, and show that you have the interest to put and to make efforts. The efforts is the competency which is the most valued today, beyond everything else.
I think you're right, Antoine. I think a lot of people are hiring for attitude and training for skill, which is true. Just in terms of time, and I'm conscious we're sort of 2 minutes over. which I think isn't bad given the breadth of the topic that we've had today. We have started to understand the evolution of sports and how it's becoming an entertainment product. I think we've covered some of the opportunities for this exciting new converging space, and how some of the content within EMLYON's master's program is equipping students for this world. So if you want to learn more about this world, or you want to go into a channel that can help support that development, we will send, well, after this, some more information. You can give you access back to this recording. So this is recorded and you'll be able to listen to it again. There'll be some connection back to global sports if you want to keep that connection going, and there'll certainly be some further information on the MSc program should you wish to partake in next year's cohort of students. Just remembering that course is in English and did have over 20 different nationalities, so a very international course for a very international topic.
If I may, thank you very much, Will. If I may just have a last word. There was a very interesting question from Lucy regarding, women's sports. Very important. Thank you very much for bringing this, Lucy. We didn't, embrace this topic, but sports has been very masculine driven, male driven, for a male. There's 50% of the society that needs to be addressed, and everything, needs to be invented. At the moment, we try to, engage women with male sports the way male are engaging. I think there's so much to be done there. And their motivations to engage into sports, even to consume sports, may be very different. And I think, us as people, and together with sports organization, have everything to learn. So a lot remains to be written here, and it's an amazing opportunity, I would say, for the future.
Thank you very much, Antoine. Thank you very much, Rhys, both for your time and for your insights. Thank you very much to the audience for engaging in what is a huge topic. We could be here all day. As Antoine says, we hadn't even gone into the opportunities that this convergence is presenting to women's sports, which is, which we could have another full-blown discussion on, and quite rightly so. So thank you all very much indeed. You will receive various bits of information. Do as you see fit with the information that's sent. And I wish you all the very best in your future careers and your journey as well. Guys, thank you very much indeed. Best wishes.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day, and don't forget to go running.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Will. Thanks, Rhys.
Thank you all.